Joining me now is Archbishop Roberto González Nieves of Puerto Rico. Thank you so much for being with us, Archbishop.
It's a pleasure to be with you and the Lord's people in Boston and all who follow you.
Thank you. Thank you. We're talking at the Bishops' Conference, and I know you're here and talking to other bishops about what has happened in Puerto Rico. Maybe if you could tell us a little bit about things that are going on now. The hurricanes hit, and there's been complete devastation, but maybe if you could tell us a little bit about the initial hit and then the response that's been happening.
Actually, there were two hurricanes that hit Puerto Rico, so to speak. The first was Hurricane Irma, September 6th. Hurricane Irma devastated St. Thomas, St. Croix, St. John, and the northern coast of Puerto Rico, the northeastern coast, basically the San Juan area and the Fajardo area. Thank God the rest of the island was not really touched by Hurricane Irma. And then September 20th, Hurricane Maria made a big hit in the Virgin Islands and in all of Puerto Rico. It hovered over Puerto Rico for approximately 30 hours. And during that time, since it moved so slowly, it caused great devastation, universal devastation. It took about 3 days for people to leave their homes and begin to clear the debris and the thousands of broken trees and branches that were all over the place. And it was a traumatic experience, I think, for everyone. Puerto Rico's government had to declare bankruptcy about 2 years ago, so that the financial situation was already in deep trouble. Before these hurricanes, a couple of hundreds of pharmaceutical factories had closed, and there had already been maybe 100,000 people leave Puerto Rico, mostly for the States, in search of jobs. And then obviously with the hurricanes, that number of people leaving the island has increased dramatically. I think in the past 7 weeks, 90,000 people have left the island. One of the things especially Hurricane Maria did was to reveal many of the invisible parts of Puerto Rico. Sociologists have been telling us for a number of years that the level of poverty has increased dramatically, but it just wasn't that visible. Once all the trees came down and the leaves disappeared, people discovered neighbors that they did not know that they had, and we all began to see more clearly the widespread poverty on the island. So it's a wake-up call in many senses. On the other hand, I must say the experience of sharing and solidarity has been enormous. Yeah. Sharing water, food, and we're still in that kind of emergency situation.
And maybe if you could expand on that a little bit too, and talk about the response and about the help that you've received from many different organizations like Catholic Extension and others.
And the Archdiocese of Boston has been very generous. Cardinal Juan, several weeks after the hurricane, sent a donation to the bishops of $200,000, which was divided equally among the 6 dioceses. Extension, Catholic Extension Society, other bishops have been very generous, and we're, as I mentioned just a moment ago, we're in, at the present time, a state of emergency, but we need to begin to plan for recovery in terms of the long-range rebuilding of Puerto Rico, because it just has to be rebuilt as the infrastructure of the island. Most of its institutions collapsed. For example, banks were not able to reopen for about almost 3 weeks after the hurricane. Supermarkets, very few were able to open. Pharmacies, at least half the schools on the island were destroyed. And churches as well, a good number of churches were severely affected. So that it'll take a number of years to begin to go back to a normal situation, so to speak.
Talk about the people and what it's been like for them, how they've come together to help each other, as you were saying too, and the importance of having the church there too to sort of be the sort of glue to keep everybody together.
Well, first of all, I think the hurricanes have impacted in a positive way family life. The hurricanes have really forced families to come together and to share meals together in the dark. And since we have no electricity, as I speak today, 70% of the population in Puerto Rico does not have electricity, which means that we had a hard time recharging cell phones, couldn't get into the internet. So it really forced parents and children to sit down and talk. And many parents have told me that they have been enjoying the company of their children, because up until the hurricanes, we were all addicted to our iPhones and access from the iPhones to the internet. They've engaged in not only in conversation, but in games and taking walks together, meeting neighbors. So in that sense, it's been a blessing in disguise. I would say in the churches, the first Sunday after the hurricane, I said Mass at the cathedral. There were 15 people in the cathedral. The following Sunday, we had 100. The subsequent Sunday, it was up to 300, and it's been increasing. And I'm told by most of the pastors that their experience has been very similar. More people participating Sunday Mass than before. Obviously, situations of great tragedy and adversity test us and renew us spiritually. How long this will last, but in the meantime, it's a graced moment, and our faith helps us to endure adversity.
So much work still needs to be done. We thank the Archbishop for talking with us. And along with prayers, you can always donate to relief efforts being provided by numerous nonprofit agencies, including Catholic Relief Services, Catholic Extension, and the Knights of Columbus, just to name a few.